Imagine it's 12,000 years ago. The world's not quite like we know it today. There's no books, no universities, not even maps. But there are people just like us trying to make sense of this world. Back then, life was tougher. You didn't just pick your groceries from the store, you hunted, gathered, and lived in a world of constant change. But there was something important that helped these people make sense of their place in the world: shamans. These early spiritual guides weren't just spiritual in a vague sense, they were deeply involved in healing, leading ceremonies, and in some ways even holding the community together. What's interesting is that we are still uncovering evidence of their influence today thanks to some really fascinating archaeological finds. Let's have a look at the role of shamans in prehistoric societies. So, where did shamans come from? It turns out the word shaman comes from the Manchu Tungus language, meaning one who knows. But the idea of a shaman has existed in many different cultures, each calling them by their own name. What we now know about them has come from digging up ancient sites and looking at clues left behind, like cave paintings and burial sites. These spiritual guides weren't just all talk, they were a big deal. We are talking about a time when humans were still figuring out how to live together in larger groups. Before these early shamans, people were nomads, constantly on the move. But around 12,000 years ago, they started settling down into more permanent homes, and that's when things got interesting. Suddenly, people had to deal with new problems: farming, staying in one place, and handling all the social complexities that come with living in one place for a long period of time. That's where shamans came in. They weren't just spiritual guides, but experts in understanding the world and helping others cope with these new changes. One of the most mind-blowing discoveries came in 2005 when a team of archaeologists dug up a burial site in northern Israel at a place called Hilazon Taktik Cave. They found the remains of a 45-year-old woman who was buried in a very elaborate way. Her grave was different from everyone else's. It contained shells, tortoise shells, animal bones, which even included a leopard pelvis and an eagle wing. Why is that important? Well, these weren't just regular grave goods. Researchers think that these items connected the woman with animals and spirits, which are key aspects of shamanic traditions. And it's not just the stuff in her grave that's telling, it's the way the woman was buried. She had some physical issues like spinal and hip deformities, which are often linked to shamans in many cultures. Plus, she was buried with care, surrounded by symbols and materials which point to her special status as a spiritual leader. And the ceremony wasn't just for her, it was a community event. Imagine the effort that went into this ceremony. Gathering everything needed required to honor someone who was important in a way that went beyond being just a regular person. These rituals were a community's way of ensuring that someone important had a meaningful departure, one that would echo throughout the lives of those left behind. Shamans weren't just spiritual therapists or priests in the manner we might think about those roles today. They had a lot of hats to wear. Primarily, they were the bridge between the living world and the world of deities, spirits, and ancestors. They communicated with these unseen forces to seek guidance, heal people, and even predict the future. Healing wasn't restricted to herbs and potions, though those were definitely part of it. Shamans worked in deeper ways, using rituals, chants, and sometimes even trances to heal people of things that they could not see or even understand. For instance, they believed that illnesses often had a spiritual cause and would perform rituals to address that. These methods blended physical and psychological healing in a way that we would probably recognize as holistic today. On top of that, shamans were cultural keepers. They helped maintain the social fabric of their communities, passed on knowledge, explained natural phenomena, and offered wisdom when things got tough. They played a big role in making sure that society kept its balance, especially when things were changing fast. Now let's talk about cave art. It's not just pretty pictures. It is a huge open window into the spiritual world of prehistoric humans. Researchers are increasingly convinced that some of the strange, hybrid, human animal figures that we see on the walls weren't just random doodles. They were depictions of shamans themselves, possibly in altered states of consciousness after a ritual. Think of it as their way of telling us what they saw when they journeyed into other realms. One of the most famous examples is the cave art in Chauvet Cave, France. Here we see images beyond the simple hunting scene. The human-animal hybrids, they are probably shamans, communicating with spirits, taking on animal forms, or receiving guidance from animal helpers. This is a key feature of shamanic practice. Animals weren't just creatures, they were spirit guides, giving shamans strength and insight on their journeys. Archaeologists believe that these images weren't just created for artistic expression. They were part of rituals, probably tied to things like hunting, healing, or even ensuring good weather for crops. The geometric patterns seen in these paintings might reflect the visual phenomena that occurred during trance states, like flickering patterns that you might see if you are experiencing a shift in consciousness. The whole idea of the other world was central to shamanism. Shamans believed that to access the other world, they had to use special techniques, like altered states of consciousness. These techniques varied, but one of the more fascinating ones involved inducing physical discomfort to facilitate spiritual journeys. For example, some shamans used upside down positions or ritualistic acts that symbolize the inversion of the ordinary world. They might even cover their faces or use body paints to represent the transformation they were going through as they crossed into the other world. It's like the ultimate physical and mental reset, entering a new reality where they could gain access to power and wisdom. When we look at these ancient practices, it's clear that shamanism was more than just a passing trend. It laid the foundation for many of the spiritual traditions found in indigenous cultures today. Across the world, from the Native Americans, the Japanese, the Koreans, to even Scandinavia, you will find practices that echo these early spiritual traditions. And here's the kicker. As we continue to dive deep into these ancient practices, we realize that they were not only about survival, they were about connection, meaning, and understanding. Even today, as people look for ways to heal in more holistic methods, we are seeing a resurgence in interest in these ancient practices. So the next time you read about ancient spirituality, know that it's not some vague or mystical thing. Shamanism was once a deeply rooted part in human life, helping people understand the world in complex and profound ways. As we dig deeper into the past, we are learning just how much these early spiritual practices affected not only the ancient world, but even our own. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video valuable. If you did, please press that like button. If you are new to the channel, consider subscribing because it helps out a lot. For more history related content, stay tuned to this channel and I will see you next time.